Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for coming along to our panel today. My name's Gary, this is my colleague Tony.
Hello.
And we both work on the artist relations team at EmuBands. So today we're just going to talk you through a wee bit about what it is we do, who we are, and also offer you some tips and advice on how you can get the most from your release campaigns. So just starting off with who exactly it is we are at EmuBands. We're a digital music distribution service. We were founded in 2005, so we've been in the digital distribution space for a wee while now, and we're one of the first to get involved. And we're based in Glasgow, so for any independent artists and labels from Scotland, we're probably just up the road from you, and you'll probably see us about at events such as Wide Days this week. We have a range of clients around the world, working with more established acts such as Simple Minds and Bombay Bicycle Club, through to more up-and-coming artists such as Callum Bowie and Bems. Both of them, of course, are showcasing at Wide Days this year, so you should definitely get along and check them out. And finally, we're something that is called a Platinum Spotify Preferred Provider. Now, what that means is we have a really good relationship with the platform. They recommend using us to get your music onto their service, and we also get some perks as part of that relationship with them. So, for example, we can offer you instant access to Spotify for Artists via your EmuBands account, so that you don't need to go via Spotify for Artists directly, which makes that process a wee bit easier for you. So what exactly is it that we do at EmuBands? So we work with independent artists and record labels to distribute your digital music releases onto online services such as Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Deezer, Tidal, and many more. In exchange, as part of a non-exclusive licensing deal, you keep 100% of your song and recording rights, and you also receive 100% of the royalties that we get back from services for streams and downloads of your music. We don't take any cut in your royalties at all. We pass it all back to you. So just to sort of sum that up, you've got yourself as the rights holder, and then you've got listeners on the digital services. You'd basically give us your release. We'd process it and distribute it to the digital services. When it's downloaded or streamed, that will then generate a royalty, and we'll pass that royalty right back to you as the rights holder. Now, the reason I've included this slide is to sort of highlight that your distributor is at the core of that process. So it's a really important decision to make, and making sure that you get the distribution service that works best for you as an artist or as a label. So some things you should think about when choosing your distributor to make sure you get that decision made as best as possible. You should ask yourself, what do you need as an artist or as a label? For example, if you're looking to distribute as many releases as possible using the most cost-effective method, or are you looking for a more hands-on sort of personal relationship with your distributor that might come at a higher cost as a result? So definitely have a think about what it is you need as an artist or label. Next, think about their pricing model and what's included in that pricing. So with distributors, you'll normally see pricing models where it's a flat fee, an annual subscription, or a commission on your royalties. And you might see a combination of any of those from other services. Have a think what will work best for you in terms of what you want to get tied into. And also have a look at what's included in that pricing. So if there's any sort of hidden costs that are going to creep up on you when you add your releases, suddenly the sort of annual subscription that might be quite cheap at first suddenly gets more and more expensive. So have a think and have a look into what exactly is included in that pricing model. Next, take a look at what services they offer on top of distribution. So for example, will they pitch your release to services? Do they offer something such as YouTube Content ID administration? And will they create pre-saved smart links for your releases? Have a think about what exactly they offer you on top of the distribution process so that you're getting a bit more extra value from your service. And finally, have a think about how easily you can get in touch with them and also how responsive they are to you. This is especially important if, say, you have a release out next week and you've discovered there's an issue with it and your distributor takes about 3 weeks to get back to you. You've suddenly got a problem on your hands. So have a think about how easily you can get in touch with them and how easily they'll get back to you and how quickly. So hopefully after asking yourself all those questions and taking a look, you're thinking about EmuBands and how exactly EmuBands works. So there's 2 strands to our service. We have our one-time distribution fees per release, and then we have our optional service subscription plans. So our one-time distribution fees, if you're looking to put a one-track single release onto stores, that will cost you a one-time fee of £10. If you're looking to put out what we call a bundle release, which is a release with 2 to 20 tracks on it, that will cost you a one-time fee of £20. We've actually overhauled our pricing recently in March this year, and we've reduced our one-time distribution fees by 60% compared to what they used to be on our old pricing model. That then allowed us to introduce our optional subscription plans. So you have 3 of those. Our basic one, which you default to when you sign up, that is no annual fees, doesn't cost you anything extra on top of your distribution. But if you want to go onto our middle plan, which is Plus, that will cost you £20 per year. And then finally, you can take yourself onto our Pro, our top tier subscription plan, which is Pro for £50 per year. And just to quickly highlight, these aren't locked together. So if you were on, for example, our Plus plan and you put out a single track release, but for whatever reason you decided not to renew your plan, your release would remain live on stores until you tell us otherwise. If your subscription plan doesn't renew for whatever reason, your releases wouldn't come down as well. So they're both separate to each other and not affected by each other. So just diving a wee bit into those subscription plans and what they include. For our basic tier, which you default to, you get 1 artist credit to use on your EmuBands account, and then you get access to some fundamental features for your releases, such as worldwide distribution. You can select your distribution contracts, so Spotify, Apple Music, etc., and then you can specify your release dates for stores. Another thing, other features involved in the basic plan are you can credit your songwriters and producers. You can have delivery to Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And we'll also deliver classical releases as well as medley releases on that plan. So moving on to our middle plan, which is Plus at £20 per year, that gives you the ability to credit 2 to 5 artists throughout your account, and you get access to all the features and services on the basic plan, of course, but we also fling in a few more to sort of supercharge your account and supercharge your releases. So those include official charts registration for your releases. It also includes custom pricing tiers for download stores such as iTunes, and finally we will do pre-save links for your releases before they go live, so you can generate some engagement around them. Our Plus plan also includes, you've got, if you want to have custom casing on your titles, if you want to have custom TikTok start points, and also if you want to set up pre-order periods for your releases on download stores, you can do all of that on our Plus plan at no extra cost. And then finally, you have our Pro subscription plan at £50 per year, which gives you unlimited artist credits on your account, and you get access to all of the features and services that we offer. So everything in the basic and the Plus. And then furthermore, on the Pro, you'll get access to our release pitching service, you'll get automatic royalty payment splits, and you'll also get access to a personal account manager. You can get in touch with them directly via email. You can also get access to their support via live chat in your EmuBands account, and you can also book in support calls if there's anything you just want to chat about over the phone. So I might be your account manager, it could be Tony, it could be one of our colleagues in the artist relations team. The Pro plan also includes our YouTube Content ID service, and you can also have an official artist channel on YouTube set up, as well as TikTok profile verification. And we also deliver Apple Digital Master files as part of your release if you wish to opt into delivery of those. So getting started with our service really is quite simple and straightforward. You would basically just go to our website and hit sign up. You would then just create an account. You would choose your optional subscription plan if you wish to do so. You would click add a new release, and then you would just follow our simple sequential process to get your release onto our system. So you would just add your release and artist info before doing your copyright information. You would select your availability and pricing, so like your release date and stuff. You would then add your track info before going on to select your distribution contracts. You can add in any extras. Of course, that would be subject to maybe your account subscription plan. You would then confirm and pay for your order before uploading your files for processing. And that's basically the process of getting a release of yours onto our system. So generally, it usually takes us around 1 business day to process your release for distribution. That doesn't account for any checks we might need to make for your releases. So for example, if there's anything wrong with your artwork file, or maybe something wrong with your metadata that we need to get you to confirm, we'll basically get in touch with you to sort of confirm any change that needs to be made before we can proceed. So if they're all going well, it'll be 1 business day, but keep an eye on your inbox in case we need to get in touch with you. Once we do distribute your release, it normally takes all stores around 2 to 3 days to process a release and make it ready to go live. And for that reason, we always advise that you add a release to our system at least 1 week in advance of your intended release date. However, if you're looking to have your release pitched as part of our service, or maybe you can pitch your release yourself on certain services, we advise giving a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks of lead-in time, just so that everything can fall into place and we can get your pitches submitted and reviewed. So that was just a quick overview of what it is we do and what it is we offer. I'll now hand you over to Tony, who'll talk you through some of tips and advice on getting most from your campaign.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Just going to look at what is coming up for me. Cool. So basically, once you've given us the assets, you've delivered it, the release is live. Gary had mentioned at the start there, we're a Spotify preferred provider. Everyone who works with us gets instant access to Spotify for Artists. I assume if you've released music before, you know what Spotify for Artists is. You know what all of these things are, but for anyone who doesn't know, so the DSPs themselves, that's the streaming services, Apple Music, Amazon, Deezer, Spotify, they all have these sort of back-end systems that you can log into. They're like artist dashboard areas where you can control your presence on those platforms. Anything from controlling the aesthetics of it, so adding artist bios, adding artist images, header images, creating playlists that appear on your service, appear on your artist page, controlling which release appears at the top of your page, called an artist pick, adding in your social media links. All of this is controlled by these toolkits. They've got different levels of kind of nuance or how feature-rich they are. Spotify for Artists is definitely the most feature-rich. Amazon Music, they all do slightly different things at the same time, doing very similar things. So Spotify, really good for creating your own playlists, really being able to show different elements of your own personality or artist story on platform. It's very customizable. Amazon Music, perhaps not as customizable as Spotify, but some of the demographic information that you get from Amazon is very unique. So where Amazon sits in the market is that a lot of their subscribers become involved with Amazon Music because they buy an Alexa smart speaker. So Amazon is able to build the Alexa information directly into Amazon for Artists, so you can actually tell how people are accessing and finding your music through voice search and the kind of voice commands that they're telling Alexa to how they're finding your music. So why is that important? Things like if you're a new artist and you can see that your voice search is doing very, very well, typically that means that they're finding you off platform somewhere. And if that voice search is telling you that they're finding you by, I'm not going to do it, but like singing a lyric into Alexa, that means that they maybe don't know who you are, but they know your song. So you can find where those voice searches are coming from. That might help inform your marketing decisions as well. So you might need to do some more marketing in a city or a territory, or just dig in and find out why that's happening. Apple Music. Again, there's really rich demographic information in there. Apple own Shazam, so I'm sure most people know what Shazam is. Again, like really, really good to look at that data. It gives you a global snapshot of how many Shazams you're getting and where you're getting them and for which songs. I find that super useful when I've been working on campaigns where there's been radio campaigns involved. We can see where that's working and where it's not working. And these are for creators as well. Again, maybe not as rich as the rest of them, but useful in any case. With all of these platforms, you can pitch in to their editorial teams. They've got forums for doing that. But I'll talk a little bit about pitching just now, and maybe what needs to be, what's useful and what I'd recommend. So you can pitch directly yourself, or you can work with your distributor or work with your label. We all have slightly different ways of doing it. Through those artist toolkits, there's very direct ways to do it. It is sometimes useful to work with someone else who maybe has just the experience or like the resources to, you know, maybe do it in a way that might have more impact. But if you are doing it yourself, the forms are very, very self-explanatory. It'll ask you, you know, think about like the mood or genre of your tracks. Mood's a really important thing on streaming services because a lot of the playlists that are programmed are normally mood-based, so things like relaxation or romance or, yeah, these kind of things. Like, have a think about that with your track. If you can try and think of a way to really succinctly sum up the story behind your track, if it's your first time pitching, just, I think, try and bear in mind that editors, I mean, there's something like 40,000 tracks a day being uploaded to streaming services at the moment. I'm sure not all of them are being pitched, but if you're trying to think about an editor who has to listen to lots and lots of music, try and think of just one or two sentences that would maybe grab them, and it's not, you're not trying to give them a whole splurge life story thing. Marketing and promo plans, yeah, I think we get a lot of people asking, like, what can they do to increase their chances of landing a playlist on Spotify, or, you know, focusing really on the streaming platform itself. But, like, I think the biggest thing that I would say to everyone here is, like, really focus on what's happening off platform. So, like, it needs to be part of a wider release campaign. There needs to be more strategy. So you need to be really working hard at building a fan base off platform, doing live shows, hitting radio, doing these kind of conference showcase events. When you're working with a distributor who's doing pitching, we'll normally ask you all of that stuff. So we'll ask what's happening with, you know, if you've got any TV slots, radio slots, live slots, is there press and PR expected, as well as the story and the mood stuff that I just spoke about there. And it's so that when we're speaking to editors, we can give them more of a story that's going on. We can give them, you know, this is maybe the first single that's coming out from an EP, and we're expecting another 2 or 3 singles down the line, and here's these kind of key milestones in the campaign that we're hoping to hit. If you can try and work with us and give us all that information, it just makes the pitch that little bit stronger, a little bit more robust. When it comes to that kind of like overall release campaign, a couple of things that we do with our artists, pre-save campaigns. So a pre-save is like a pre-order, but for streaming services. So it allows fans to engage with the release before it comes out. They connect their Spotify or the Apple Music account with, we use a service called Feature FM for this. So it allows them to link their account with it and pre-save your track before it comes out. So what that really means for the fan is that it gets in their library from midnight when your release comes out. Now, that's not super useful to a fan because they can just search for your release on the day that it comes out. But it's quite useful for artists and labels for two main reasons. One is it really positively affects the algorithms on streaming services that push these discovery, so discovery-based playlists like Discover Weekly on Spotify or Release Radar on Spotify, they're not made by real people, they're made by algorithms. So there's a bit of machine learning or AI that goes on those platforms that's trying to detect which tracks are popular or which tracks are likely to be popular. And one of the things that they look for is this positive engagement from fans. Things like playing a track the whole way through, not skipping it, going back to the track to play it, saving the track is a really positive, like a positive sort of notification to the algorithms that people like it. So if you're able to get people to save the track before it comes out, it's in Spotify's system that's kind of working through the process of that. Fingers crossed it sort of positively affects these algorithms, and by the time your release comes out, you land a lot of these kind of non-editorial playlists that are basically made by the computer. That's the first reason it's a good thing. The second reason is it helps you build engagement pre-release, so it just gives you a little bit more time to have a conversation around what's happening, get people ready for that big release date, impact date. Like I said, it's good for artists and labels. It's maybe not that good for fans. It doesn't really do too much for them. You're asking them for something that benefits you when they're really not getting anything in return. So we talk about gamification or incentivification of pre-saves. So it's sort of like rewarding fans for doing that. There's a number of ways that you can do it. We can set the pre-save up almost like a paywall to unlock content. So ideas that we have, like Callum Bowie's out there, we worked with Callum on this. We got Callum, or worked with Callum, he recorded a snippet of the song up on Arthur's Seat, thanking people for pre-saving it. We put that up as a private YouTube link. The only way that you could access the private YouTube link was if you pre-saved the track. So you click pre-save. After you pre-saved, it took you to that video. So we got way more pre-saves with that than we would have if we'd offered them nothing, right? Another way to do it is by getting people to give you their email addresses. So that is beneficial for artists and labels because you can gather fan data. So it allows you to start building mailing lists and really start to understand who your fans are. But also you can say, once you pre-save the track, drop your email address in the box provided, and you can run a prize draw, maybe a couple of tickets for a show, a t-shirt or whatever. It's a really good way of getting those numbers on the pre-save up, and it benefits everyone. The way that you do that through our service is on the Pro platform, yeah, there's a number of different ways that you can do it, but certainly like we can set all that stuff up for you on the Pro service. Another tip that I would give you when I was talking about we were playlist pitching, when we're talking to editors, it's useful for us to tell editors the whole story of what's going on in the future, not just a single track, right? So like if you have an album or an EP that you're planning to release, typically you're going to want to not release that all at once. You're going to want to drip feed it. The reason that you want to drip feed it, again, another two reasons that I'll give you is that you want to maximize your play count so that when the album comes out, your total number of streams is already really high. It just looks very, very good. And secondly, you want to pitch as many tracks as possible into DSPs. So if you're sitting on Spotify, I'm sure you've seen this already on Spotify for artists. If you're releasing an EP or an album, you can only pitch one track from that EP or album, and the rest of them are grayed out. You're unable to pitch them. Waterfall releases sort of solve that problem. I'm trying to eloquently describe what a waterfall release is. So it has the appearance of being released gradually, right? It's like track one, your first single comes out as a one-track single. If you've got your second track single, or your second single coming out, say 4 or 6 weeks down the line, you release that, so it's single number 2. But that first single that you put out is track number 2 on that 2-track release. So you've got single number 2 and then single number 1 right underneath it, right? If you've got another third single coming out, you do that again. So the third single is track 1, second single is track 2, first single is track 3, if that makes sense. What happens there is to the fan, it looks like the same product is just growing exponentially, right? It's just the same artwork, the same title, and it's growing each time. What that actually looks like on the back end is 3 completely separate products. And because it's 3 completely separate products, you can pitch each time to editorial teams. It gives you that extra chance of landing playlists for each of the tracks on the release. And because of the way that the platforms work, if you're playing in sequence, so if you're playing an EP, which by the time you've released 3 tracks, it's no longer really a single, it is an EP. If I'm playing that track 1, after it plays, it's going to play track 2, it's going to play track 3. These sound like really minuscule things, but like it maximizes those ongoing plays that you get, which when you're dealing with micropayments is really, really important. And it does mean that you're able to continue generating that buzz and conversation around the release if you're drip feeding it. And you can also run pre-save campaigns for every single one of them as well, and just kind of bolstering that amount of fan data that you're collecting. Yeah, so that's a thing that I would get everyone to think about. It obviously does increase your release costs a little bit. But I definitely think it is worth it to employ that kind of strategy if you have more than one track that you're thinking of doing. when we come to the end, each of the platforms I spoke about earlier all have really, really rich demographic and analytical information in them. You don't really have to be a scientist to make use of all that kind of stuff. I would say it's important to, sit down and understand what worked and what didn't. Timing is really, really important with these things. I know that Gary had touched upon it earlier, that for pitching, we generally only need 4 to 6 weeks out, but I think you really need to think about giving your releases time to breathe on the platform. So I don't, if it was me releasing, I don't think I would release every 4 weeks. I think it works for different platforms. Obviously, like TikTok's very content heavy, and you're going to want to have new content all the time. But for places like Amazon and Spotify, you might not see your release streams peak until maybe 2 months in, and I think if you're onto the next track after that, you're maybe not giving that track enough time to grow on the service, right? So try and space things out. But it is important to kind of have a plan or a campaign involved in that. Fan data, I feel like I could bore you for hours on fan data, but one of the great things that we get from pre-saved campaigns, like I said, is all those really rich email addresses. We can also place, this is where I'm going to get super boring, right? Place pixels or cookies onto those pre-save links. That helps us build audiences on places like Meta, so Facebook or Instagram, and create audience types of people who've pre-saved or interacted with your pre-save links. That allows us then to create an audience on those platforms that we think will be interested in your music. We can then run ads over Instagram and Facebook, either for new releases that you're putting out or for a kind of catalog marketing campaign to bring people back onto the platform. Yeah, I think I'm done boring everyone about this stuff. I think we've got some time for some questions if anyone has any at all. Yeah. It's a good question. I'm not going to sit here and say my opinion is worth more than your opinion. Absolutely not. But you touched upon the relationship thing there, right? I think that is important. Yeah, we've worked with them for an exceedingly long time, and we've also just been doing pitching for a very, very long time. So even in terms of helping you write your pitches, we generally know the right things to say and make sure it's packaged properly and that it's been pitched in on time. And we also have the benefit of doing re-editorial. So 4 to 6 weeks after your release comes out, if you can deliver us in an update on how your campaign's going, or any milestones or new live dates or anything like that, we can then go back to them and have a continued conversation with them that you might not have if you're doing it yourself. Anybody else? You had your hand up first. Sorry.
Let's say you release music using one distribution company and then switch to another one. It's pretty straightforward. There's no risk of duplicate profile on streaming.
No, yes, I suppose it depends on who you work with, but most distributors nowadays are pretty good at making sure that kind of thing doesn't happen. And I think most distribution platforms nowadays are also non-exclusive, but I would also just check your agreements with them in case there's a cooling off period before you move to someone else. But yeah, we can deliver artist identifiers when we're delivering your release. So, pardon me, things like your Spotify page information, your Apple Music page information, we can make sure that it lands on those pages on first try, basically. But another thing that I would stress is anytime a release doesn't map to the right page, we can very, very quickly sort that out as well. So it doesn't normally cause too many issues.
I was going to say we've been told to wrap up.
Okay.
But we're just outside the door at our trade stand, so if you've got any questions throughout the day, feel free to come and give us a chat. But yeah, thanks a lot for coming along, and feel free to, any questions you've got, we'll see you outside.
Cheers.
Thank you.